Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Balogun Camila Tomolola. I'm the founder of Camroot Smart Farms and Agri Venture in Ibadan, Oyo State. Camroot is an horticultural farm that is into the primary production of tomato, cucumber, and pepper, basically. And Camroot is sitting on 1.5 acres of land, which are sectioned into partitioned into different sections. So we have section A, which is about 2 plots. The farm is actually divided into 4 sections, and we have each section containing 2 plots each. So we have this production that is 3 weeks going to 4 weeks. We want to walk you through exploring the financial opportunities in tomato farming. Just like I said earlier on, that Camroot is an horticultural farm that deals with the primary production of tomato. Why tomato? Tomato, because why horticulture? That should have been the question. Horticulture in the sense that, as youth, we like something that give us quick profit on our investment, quick return on our investment, and that is what horticulture gives: tomato, cucumber, pepper, carrots, cabbage, and the likes. So you get your return within a short period of time. And for tomatoes, after your transplanting is about 2.5 months, 10 weeks from transplanting before you start cashing out. So I want to walk you through the production cost. Like this section, we have 2 plots here, and we have about 3,400 sitting on this section. We have another section that is 8 weeks going to 9 weeks. That one too is also sitting on 2 plots. So we have another one that we just transplanted that is 5 days old. Then the last batch, we're actually using the last 2 plots for cucumber that's to be planted next week. So for this now, if you want to cultivate about 2 plots of tomato reasonably, if you have between 500 to 600,000, that should take you, with the high cost of inputs and all that. You get your seed, you clear the land, you make ridges, you do your land preparation, the manuring and everything, you establish your nursery. Then after 3 weeks you transplant. So once you do that, you start your fertilizer application, probably a week or 2 weeks depending on the routine that you want to do. Then you do your fungicide and insecticide routine, and after 3 months, after 2.5 months, 10 weeks, there we have a lot of varieties. Some are 60 to 70 days, 60 to 70 days variety after transplanting. Then we have some that are 70 to between 70 and 80 days before you start harvesting. But for this particular variety, which is Platinum F1 from East West Seed, it's actually a 60 to 70 days variety, and you can see they are 3 weeks going to 4 weeks. So once they are 9 weeks, you start seeing them getting ripe. Then before 10 weeks, you start your first harvest. So with about 500,000, you should be able to put up 500 to 600,000. You should be able to put up something like this. At least get your seed, your manure, your fertilizer, your fungicide, your insecticide, and the likes. And if all things being equal, at least you should get between 120 to 140 crates from 3,004 plants, 2 plots. You should get something like that. So it now depends on how much a tomato is being sold at that particular time. And presently, a tomato it commands a very good market price, that by the time you're done with your harvest, at least you shouldn't make less than 1 point something m as your return on investment. What's in the money required or the finance required to start your business? For any business, not just tomato farming alone, there are some knowledge that you need to get before you can venture into that business, and tomato farming is not an exception. The whole idea is to do a production and make money. So a whole lot of things has to be considered, a whole lot of things has to be known. One, you need to know the varieties that you're planting. Just like I said earlier on, we have a lot of varieties. Some are suitable for some have heat resistance, that you can plant them during the dry season, and we have some that they are cool loving varieties. So it is good for you to understand that which varieties am I planting. Is this variety in line with the present weather condition that we have? There are some varieties that if you want to start your production by March, you cannot plant them. And there are some varieties that it is not advisable for you to plant them maybe by June, July, due to no variety is perfect. Each variety has one unique thing about them. So it's just for you to understand that what you are looking for at that particular time. You consider the weather as well. Then after having known that, then another thing that you need to consider is your drip, because vegetable farming, not just tomato, vegetable farming generally, they need water at all times regardless of the season, either dry season or raining season. So you need to have a very good source of water, the one that does not dry up. Then you need to have your drip irrigation in place, that even if it doesn't rain for a week, you need to give your vegetables, you need to give them water. And there is no good thing without without the other side. Tomato, they have a lot of challenges. We have pest infestation, we have fungal infestation. Amongst the pests that affect tomatoes, we have aphids, we have thrips, we have worms, we have caterpillars, we have white flies, we have mites, and a whole lot of them. So likewise, fungal infection too. We have late blight, we have early blight, we have anthracnose, we have some bacterial infection, which is a common issue that the southwest tomato farmers are facing. Like in the north, that they are battling with tuta absoluta. Here in the southwest is bacteria with either bacteria with or fusarium. That is the issue that most southwest, like 90% of southwest land that they have. But there is a way that you can actually manage that with some practices, with some chemicals that you can use. It's not like there is no variety that has 100% resistance to that bacteria root or fusarium root, but we have some varieties that have a reasonable resistance to it. And with your good agricultural practices, you'll be able to manage the situation, you put it under control till you're done with your harvesting. And like I was saying, fungal infections that affect tomatoes, we have early blight, we have late blight, we have anthracnose, we have bacterial specks, that's bacterial infections. We have root knot as well, and that can be taken care of with some chemicals. We have worm fuzz or furadan. The active ingredient for that is carbon furan. So anything that contains carbon furan takes care of root knot issues. That's a nematode. Then for insecticide, for insect infestation, we have a lot of insecticides out there. We have insecticide like safametrin that takes care of worms, caterpillars, and the like. Emamectin benzoate. We have acetamiprid, imidacloroprid, lambda cyhalothrin, abmettin, acetamiprid, and a whole lot of them. And another thing with all these chemical is there is a time for you to spray. Just like we human beings, that we eat through our mouth, we breathe through our nose. Them too, there is something called stomata. So stomata is the hose that is on the plant, through which they give out oxygen that the oxygen that we breathe in. So it is actually through those also, especially when you are spraying all these, like I was mentioning earlier, insecticide. We have some that they are systemic, we have some that they are stomach, and we have some that they are contact. Especially the systemic one, you need to spray them as at when your plant stomatas are still opened, and their stomatas are opened very early in the morning or late in the evening when the weather is not hot. That is when you have their stomatas open. So whatever you spray at that particular time, it goes straight into the plant system and waits there for any insects to pest on. So whenever any insects perches on your plant, they take in the sap, and they are, during the process, they take in whatever you must have sprayed that has already gone into the plant tissues during that process. And the same thing goes for your fungicide too. We have some fungicides that are curative, and we have some that are preventive. We have a whole lot of them. We have mancozeb, we have chlorothalonil, we have zymosali, we have carbon-based fungicide, we have carbendazim, azoxystrobin, paraclostrobin, a whole lot of them. So for these, you have to, first of all, you cannot solve a problem if you do not know what that problem is. So you have to know what your plant is suffering from. If it is an early blight, if it is a late blight, so you need to know, so that you are not using paracetamol for something that you could have actually used chloroquine for. So having established that, then you administer the right fungicide for it. For instance, if you're noticing your tomatoes wilting, it is best managed if you use copper-based fungicide for that. You drench, you spray. We have copper-based fungicide in cocoa fuzz, we have it in red fuzz, we have it in copper sulfate, we have it in Champ DP, then we have it in Ultima Plus, and a host of others. So bacterial infections are well managed when you use copper-based fungicide. When we have a late blight or early blight, those ones are well managed with fungicide like carbendazim, azoxystrobin, mancozeb, chlorothalonil, and all that. So that is for that. Then insecticide, like I said earlier on, we have acetamiprid, we have imidacloprid, we have lambda-cyhalothrin, paracostrobin, and all that. So for white flies, aphid, thrips, and all that, you can actually manage those insects with acetamiprid, with lambda-cyhalothrin, imidacloprid. But we have some insects too, worms, caterpillars, that they bore holes into your fruit. So those ones can actually be taken care of with emamectin benzoate, sapermethrin, profenofos, dimethioate, and the likes. So the whole idea is for you to understand the insect or the fungal infection that you want to battle. Then you look at the appropriate fungicide or insecticide to administer. So with that, you know that you are spraying the right thing at the right time. Then another thing is your nutrition, the nutrients, sorry, that you supply your plant with. You know, just like we human beings too, plants, they have different stages. You know, when I wasn't like this when I was born, it is something that actually makes me to grow to this. So the same thing goes for plants too. At the nursery stage, if you want to establish your nursery, you get your cocoa pits. We have different nursery medium. We have potting soil. That if you get potting soil, you don't even need to add any form of nutrients. It has nutrients on its own that can actually take care of your plant for that period of 3 weeks that they will be in the nursery. So, but if you don't want to go that, if you don't want to go through that channel, you can get your cocoa pits and bao soil. You mix it at the ratio of ratio 2 to 1. That's 2 of cocoa pits with 1 ratio of bao soil. So the bao soil is the nutrients that your plants will be getting once you establish your nursery. So that takes care of your nursery. So you don't need to do any other thing, just water. And your watering too, it depends on the period or the time of your nursery establishment. Like now that we have cool weather, you can actually water your nursery maybe once in a day, maybe around 12 p.m. in the afternoon. You water, you just study the weather condition. But if it is around that much, you might need to water even like 3 or 4 times in a day. The whole idea is your medium should not get dry. You get it? But at the same time, you shouldn't overwater them, because if you overwater them, you might actually cause a fungal infection, damping off, whereby you see your seedlings, they will be getting rotten as a result of excessive water. So that you should not overwater, and at the same time you should not underwater. So just study them. If you see that your nursery is still moist to a reasonable extent, there is no point for you to water. But if you see that the medium is dry, then you give them water. So having done that, while your seedling is in nursery, then you come to your land preparation. You clear your land, you make your ridges, then you apply your manure. Manure is extremely important, just like breast milk it is to newborn babies. That's how manure is to your plant, regardless of, it doesn't even have to be tomatoes, anything that you plant at all. Because if you, regardless of any crop, manure is as important as breast milk is to a new child. If you have a new child that is being put on exclusive breastfeeding, and the one that is being fed with Cerelac, there is no disputing the fact that the one that is being put under that is being fed with Cerelac will not grow. No, but you cannot compare their growth, even if they look the same, even if they have the same height. But intellectually, the one that is being subjected to exclusive breast milk will definitely be brilliant than, or healthier than, the one that is being subjected to Cerelac. So the same thing goes for plants too. It doesn't have to even be tomatoes, anything whatsoever. And apart from the fact that it has some nutrients, it also replenishes the soil. It supplies with a lot of microbes that your plants need for healthy growth. And you know, when your plants are healthy, they give you good yield, and you know what that means at the end of the day. So while your seedling is in nursery, you make your ridges, then you do your manuring. The best way is broadcasting. That is, if you have a lot of manure, you broadcast, you spread it on the land, they make ridges and cover it up. But if you don't have access to a lot of manure, then you can do spot application. And what do I mean by spot application? Like this drip tape now, the emitter, you just dig like 30 centimeters down, then you fill it up with manure. So you let it sit, you fill it up with manure, then you apply SSP and single super sulfate. You apply it, then you let it sit. That is to be done the same day or like 2 or 3 days after your nursery has been established, because ideally the manure is supposed to stay for like 2 to 3 weeks on the field before you transplant. So by then, because it's a slow releasing fertilizer, it's actually a fertilizer as well, but it's a slow releasing one. So while you allow it to sit, the nutrients will already be releasing before you transplant your tomato. So once you transplant either tomato, pepper or anything, your plant starts making use of that nutrient in the soil already. So that is why it is advisable. And if you are using SSP, like I said, you apply it the same day you do your manuring. But if you're using another form of phosphorus fertilizer, which is DAP, the ammonium phosphate, you can actually do that the same week that you do your transplanting, because that one is a fast releasing fertilizer. And after you've gotten your fungicide, your insecticide, you've done your nursery, you've transplanted. Like I said, we have different stages in vegetable farming, not in farming, just like we human beings. There are sometimes that they were carrying us, we start crawling, we start walking, running up and down. So the same thing goes for plants. But in plants, we have them in just 4 categories. We have apart from nursery, we have vegetative, we have flowering, we have production, we have harvesting. They are all important, but to me, harvesting here, it's very, very important, because you know that pepper don't rest at that particular time. So vegetative, from the day you transplant to 4 weeks, they vegetate. The only thing they understand is for them to grow, have more leaves, have robust stems, and there are some fertilizers. There are some fertilizers that you need to give them at that particular time, that it will aid that development. One is urea, nitrogen. So nitrogen, what nitrogen does to your plant is it makes it vegetate, to have more leaves. The leaves should be broad, as in very broad, robust stems and everything. And you know that if your leaves are very broad, your stems are robust, definitely you are really in for good harvest. So that is what nitrogen does. But despite the fact that they need nitrogen at that particular time, they also need phosphorus, because you know, if someone is sick, no matter the food, like there is a saying that in Yoruba, omo omowe eloni handwriting la fe so ni. You understand? No matter the nitrogen that you're giving it, if your plant roots are not properly formed and network, no matter what you give them, for them to absorb that nutrient and make you use of it will be an issue. That is why phosphorus is extremely important, like extremely important, because the first thing that you should actually look out for is for your plant to have as many roots as possible, and for that root to be properly networked. Let it be left and right, north and south, everywhere, so that wherever you place your fertilizer, you are rest assured that there are roots there to get it to the plant, to the stems, and for the plant to make use of it. So during their vegetative stage, they need phosphorus, they need nitrogen, they need calcium. You wouldn't want their stems just like a newborn baby. A newborn baby, I need calcium, but not at the same rate that a newborn baby needs it, because to a reasonable extent my bones are formed. But a newborn baby needs calcium more for bone formation. The same thing goes for plants too. You need their stems to be rigid, as in it should be it should stand, not it rains today, you see them like this falling and all that. So that is what they need calcium for. And at the long run, it will prevent blossom end rot once your tomato starts fruiting, or your pepper. So they need calcium, they need phosphorus for roots and root formation and proper networking. Then they need calcium for rigidity. Then they need nitrogen for vegetation, robust stems and vegetation. At the same time, they need magnesium, but in a very small quantity. So that is what they need from the first week to 4th week of transplanting. That is what you should supply your plant, the nutrient that you should supply your plant with. Then from 5 to 7, they are changing. That is flowering stage. Then you see them flowering. They will start bringing up flowers, blooming and all that. So at that particular time, then you introduce potassium to them. What does potassium do? Potassium aids with flower formation and flower conversion from flowers to fruit, then for fruit to be bigger. So that is what potassium does. Then from 8 week, from 5 to 6 flowering, then from 7 to 9 production. That is when the bulky work now starts. So then they need more potassium at that particular time, with no disregard to the fact that they still need nitrogen to be vegetating, but at a very minimum quantity. And then you need to introduce magnesium to them, because despite the fact that you need them to vegetate, you wouldn't want your leaves to be pale green and all that. So you need to introduce magnesium to them, probably at 5 weeks as well, because by then a lot of things is already taking place. They are flowering, they want their flowers to be conversion, so they need as much that green pigment as much as they can get for photosynthesis to take place. And like we were all taught in secondary school, that photosynthesis is the process through which plants manufacture their food with the aid of sunlight in the process of chlorophyll. So that chlorophyll, it is the magnesium sulfate that is responsible for that chlorophyll. So when you have, so when you can see this is an LD leaves, green, no pale green, it's broad and all that. But when you have some of your leaves like here, you have it yellow, but the veins green, that's magnesium deficiency. So you need to be very, very on top of your game with your nutrient supply to your plant, so that you make sure that you're supplying the right nutrients at the right time. They don't need potassium when you newly transplant them, so you shouldn't give them. But we have some fertilizer, they are compound fertilizers like NPK 1515. You have nitrogen, you have phosphorus, you have potassium in the same ratio. So you can give them that. But once they start flowering, then you introduce more potassium to them. But once they start fruiting, then your potassium supply has to be, you have to increase your potassium supply. So that aids with their flowering and the flowering conversion from flowers to fruit, and it aids their fruiting, as well. Then their calcium that you've actually supplied at the earlier stage, that is when it works. Calcium, it's boron. There is another nutrient, another macro. With nutrients, we have macro and we have micro. Just like the name, we have some that they need in a very large quantity, and we have some that they need in a very small quantity. But the fact that they need some in small quantity does not mean they don't need it. And the irony of it is, those ones that they need in small quantities, if they do not get it, it will not even make the ones that you give in large quantity to work. For instance, if your leaves are chlorotic, how will photosynthesis take place? You just be giving them you be supplying them with potassium, and they will not be making use of it. Or if the roots are not properly formed or networked. So everything, all the nutrients are kind of interwoven. A works for B, B work for C, C work for D, D work for A. So everything has to be given to them at the appropriate time and in the right quantity. The appropriate time, the right amount, the right source, and in the right quantity, because this thing is business. You understand? So everything, all the costs incurred has to be taken into consideration when you're making during your production cycle. And when I say in the right quantity, I mean, a plant, you give them 5 grams, regardless of whatever you're giving them, either potassium, nitrogen, or anything. You give them 5 grams. So if you are giving a particular plant 10 grams, you know that for a period, like maybe there are 2 weeks or 4 weeks, you want to give them nutrients, and you're supplying a particular plant 10 grams, you know that you're already shooting your leg. You're already shooting yourself in the leg, because at the end of the day, it's going to tell on your return on investment. So everything has to be accurate. With farming, it has to be precise for you to know that, okay, this is the so amount that I incurred during my production, and this is so amount that I got as my return on investment. So having discussed the process of tomato production, if all goes well and you get it right, at least you should have something like this at 8 weeks. So you can see the fruits are they're already converted. So in the next 2 weeks, then we should be going to the market. Presently, we are actually dusting our crates already. So if you get it right, everything being equal, at least you should have something like this, or something close to this, or something better than this. So this is 8 weeks. It will be 8 weeks on Monday. So this is Platinum F1. So it will be 8 weeks on Monday. So in the next 2 weeks, at least we should be visiting the market, and our account should actually we should be getting some alert from the market. If you have any question, any inquiries to make about tomato cucumber farming, you can get through to me through my number that will be displayed on the screen. Thank you and remain blessed. And one good thing about it is for youth, consultation is free. For women, it is free. For men, we'll see how it goes. But for youth, honestly, it is free. And there is no limit to what you can achieve in horticulture farm. There is no limit to what you can achieve in horticultural farm. Thank you and remain blessed. Once again, my name is Balogu Camila Tolola. Thank you.